I just finished reading a terrific book by a dear friend of mine. It's really an illuminating book by my friend Rick Santorum, and the book's called Blue Collar Conservative, Recommitting to an America That Works. And I can tell you, as somebody who campaigned for Reagan often, he understood that Republicans damn well better reach out to what we came to call them Reagan Democrats, or they can't win. And it's also the right thing to do. Rick Santorum, how are you, sir?
Well, I'm better now that I'm talking to you. And by the way, it was great seeing you at the NRA. You were in great form that day, and you're a great defender of all constitutional amendments, but you were a great defender of the Second Amendment that day. It was great seeing you.
Well, thank you. It was a lot of fun, and we had dinner together, and it was you're just. I just wish people could know you the way that I know you. Seriously, I mean, folks, I'll be honest with you, Rick. His family have invited me over Christmas and Thanksgiving. We live, 10 miles apart, maybe less, I don't know. But you have a beautiful, wonderful family. In any event, tell me about this book and why you wrote it.
Well, I wrote it because, unfortunately, the Reagan coalition, everybody talks about Reagan. They talk about his ideas, which is great. They talk about his communications, so it's great. But what they don't talk about is that Ronald Reagan was able to reach out and realign the political landscape. Because he went out and really focused on trying to bring in what I call blue collar conservatives. And when I say blue collar conservatives, they don't need to be blue collar jobs. I mean, you could be in, they could be in the hospitality industry or in the healthcare industry. But the point is, these are folks who shared Reagan's values of work, responsibility, limited government, family is important, faith is important. And that's a big chunk of the Democratic Party who votes for Democrats, in my opinion, is because Republicans don't do anything to speak to them. We sound, you know this, Mark. Most of our folks who are out there campaigning sound like economists, out there talking about, charts and pie graphs.
And by the way, they sound like bad economists, most of them.
Bad economists, that's right. And we always talk about sort of big picture things instead of boiling it down. And the beauty of Reagan was he could tell a story, he could communicate something, and he could connect with people and explain how the things he wanted to do helped them. Instead of saying, we're going to have GDP growth at this. Most of the people when they hear that, they say, well, GD that, buddy. This is not what's going to communicate to me and make my life better. And so this book is all about a game plan to help put those blue-collar conservatives back to work in good-paying jobs and help communicate an effective message there.
Now, Rick Santorum, some of your enemies within the Republican Party like to talk about your last election, but they don't like to talk about your other elections. You won in Democrat blue-collar areas. How did you do that?
Yeah, I mean, I won, two congressional districts in Pittsburgh, one which included the entire Steel Valley of Pittsburgh, then won two Senate elections in Pennsylvania, and I did because I was the guy out there talking about the importance of energy. To me, energy, I was from a big coal state, now a big coal and gas state, and, we were always out there pushing the importance of energy, coal mining jobs and natural gas jobs, and the importance of having that energy source to keep costs down. The biggest killer for people who are, middle income workers is when energy prices go up. It just eats away much more than almost anything else, energy and food prices. And so talking about energy was key. And then of course manufacturing. Look, I came from, people call it the Rust Belt, but I grew up in a steel town. My grandfather was a coal miner, and I was always focused on making sure that we had everything we could do to make manufacturing competitive in America. And so, folks who, may not agree with us on every issue say, well, at least this guy's working for us. The guy's out there, he cares about the people in America, of which 70% of Americans don't have college degrees. And we as Republicans, we're always talking to the small business guy or the technology guy and always about, the sort of the future. But we don't talk to the average job holder out there, and that's what this message is really all about.
And they don't really have anywhere to go right now, do they? The Democrat Party is radical left. They've embraced the green element, which puts a lot of these people out of work and so forth. I mean, these individuals, these neighborhoods, these communities, they're there for the taking politically, aren't they?
Well, I mean, here's, I don't know if you saw this statistic. It's been thrown around that 6 million people who were sort of in this group, if you will, didn't turn out and vote in the last election. And they weren't going to vote for Obama because, as you mentioned, his policies are a failure. They're destroying people. They're raising the cost of labor. They're making it harder and harder to hire people. And workers now realize that as they try to get these jobs, and they're only getting temporary jobs, and they're getting jobs at less money. So they know Obama doesn't work. But it goes back to what Jack Kemp always used to say: people don't care what you know until they know that you care. And unfortunately, we haven't done a very good job showing the average job holder in America that we really care about them and have ideas to create a better life and opportunity for them.
The book is Blue Collar Conservatives Recommitting to an America That Works. And why is this so hard for the Republican Party to do? Do you think it's too Washington-centric at this point?
Yeah, I mean, look, Mark, because you're out there battling this every day. I mean, the problem with the Republican Party right now is it's misaligned. I mean, the Democratic Party is perfectly lined up. The Democratic Party is the party of the progressives, the left, and that's where the base of the Democratic Party is. And by the way, that's where their funders are. The funders, the George Soroses, the Tim Gills, and all those folks, they're all hardcore left. That's where the big money is, and they're all perfectly lined up. And as you know, Mark, the base of the Republican Party is still hardcore, strong conservative, principled conservatives, but our funders aren't. And as a result of that, you have a lot of just torn apart. I mean, we're just getting ripped up.
And Rick Santorum, when the funders pick the candidate, we lose.
Exactly, because and you have candidates who, as you know this, Mark, you meet lots of folks who say they're conservatives, and then when they get into the mix and they realize, hey, I got to get my bread buttered, they end up not being as conservative as they want. Why? Because if they stick by their guns, they're sort of ostracized and they don't get any money. And you got to have money if you're going to compete in politics.
Mm-hmm. Why did you decide to write this book?
Because I care about the people that I grew up with. And I grew up in Butler, Pennsylvania, and the people that had a huge impact on my life. My Little League baseball coach, my basketball coach, the guy that ran I'll never forget, the guy that ran the community center in the little steel town I grew up in. Those folks, all worked at the mill, all had good, worked 9 to 5, and then gave to the community. And these folks are now having to work 2, 3 jobs. Their wives are having to work a job or two, and everybody's sort of stretched. And the values that were so important in shaping my life, well, those folks aren't there anymore. They're not there to shape the values. The dads and the moms who are just being stretched, and they're barely shaping the values of their own children. And I'm looking for an America that can create jobs, to create wealth, and by creating wealth, create a standard of living that can, return to the days when people had some time to be able to raise not just families but communities.
When I finished your book, I said to myself, wow, there's an opportunity here, kind of underscores what I've been thinking, to truly realign the politics in this country, to truly tap into areas of the country where the Democrats have disenfranchised, I don't mean actually voting-wise, but in terms of politics, a huge part of their base. There's an opportunity to tap into the union and non-union vote. There's an opportunity to tap into the coal miners, steel workers, commercial fishermen, truck drivers. All these people are being rejected right now. What's that?
Can I add one more? I'll add one more, Mark. And you and I talked about this the other day. I would say let's talk about Hispanics. I mean, This book's I'm a first generation American, and when I was growing up, the jobs that first generation Americans were getting were lower and middle income jobs, where a lot of them, most of these folks didn't go to college, and they were looking for the energy, the manufacturing, the service jobs, and that's who we're talking to here. And secondly, as you know, Mark, I spent a big chunk of the book talking about the importance of marriage and families and reclaiming marriage. And again, the Hispanic...
Wait a minute, why is that so taboo right now? I mean, it's remarkable to me. Don't most people believe in marriage, one man, one woman? Most people live their lives that way? I mean, why is that so taboo to talk about that?
Well, it's in my opinion, we have to talk about it in a way that says simply, marriage is a very important part to economic stability and success, particularly for low-wage workers. That, you know, two low-wage workers together can make ends meet. One, well, it's very hard, and the government ends up coming in and as I talk about in the book, trapping people into poverty. Trapping people because, as you know, Mark, if you're someone who's a single mom and you're raising kids and you're doing the best you can and you're working as hard as you can, the government gives you money, but the more money you make, the less benefits you get, and as a result, you get trapped because you lose too many benefits if you make more money. The second thing, and I talk about not just the income trap, but the marriage trap. Glenn Grossman, who's is a good friend of mine from Wisconsin, showed me a chart that in Wisconsin, if you're a single mom making $15,000 a year with two kids, you get $38,000 in welfare benefits from the state of Wisconsin. If you get married, you lose them all. So not only are we trapping people and not being able to make more money, but we're trapping people and not being able to get married. And so if you have a serious boyfriend, well, you end up in a situation, unfortunately, sometimes where you're encouraged to live in, which is a very dangerous situation for the children, as opposed to getting married, because the government will penalize you if you get married.
Now, Rick Santorum, I notice you're doing a lot of traveling. What, you need frequent flyer miles or something, or are you busy meeting people?
I'm in Sacramento today.
See that?
Just getting around. I'll be in Los Angeles tomorrow. I'll be doing a book signing tomorrow in Los Angeles, and I'll be traveling around the country, mostly for the book, but also, I'm hoping that everybody, every candidate for Congress and the Senate, picks up a copy of this book. As Mark, you'll tell me, it's an easy read. I mean, you can read it in a day, and
by the way, it's a very enjoyable book. It's a very nice book. Let me ask you this. Are you, I'm not going to play games with you, but I mean, are you at least thinking about running for president again?
Yeah,
I mean, you came in second, right, in the Republican primary?
No, I'm absolutely thinking about it, and, I think I owe, the folks who supported me and the things that I believe in and that that I don't see really anybody out there talking about. I think I did talk about things differently than pretty much any other candidate that was out there, and the reason I wrote this book is because I felt like this was a very important part. I think I shared a story in the book. I shared very briefly that after the campaign, I met with the Romney campaign, and they showed me a poll. And the poll was a poll they had taken in Pennsylvania 3 days before I dropped out of the race. They said, we saw this pattern for the last 10 or 12 primaries, that the exit poll at 5 o'clock always underestimated your vote. And so they started to ask the question, not only who are you going to vote for, but when are you planning to vote? And in this Pennsylvania poll, if you were going to vote before noon, I was up by 5. If you were going to vote between noon and 4 o'clock, I was down by 5 o'clock, I was down by 4. And if you're going to vote after 5 o'clock, I was up by 21. And, it just shows that the folks who had to work and punch a clock or couldn't get off work, who voted after work, those folks were voting in very big numbers for us. And I think that's the kind of candidate, the kind of message that we have to have if we're going to go out there and realign politics in America for us to be competitive on a national scale.
I just want to make sure that they don't pick us to pieces with a lot of conservatives running and then they slip another one of these rhinos through it, because we will lose again. Now, Rick Santorum, the book is Blue Collar Conservatives Recommitting to an America That Works. I've linked to this on Mark Levin Show Facebook, Mark Levin Show Twitter. Folks, it is a terrific book. You can go directly to Amazon if you wish, but it tells you a lot about his family and his life. But even more than that, it really does talk about a realignment that I am strongly in favor of, because I think we're going to have to do this, and that is take our philosophy and apply it to the real world, real lives, and we can do that. Rick, be safe out there, my friend.
God bless you, buddy. Thank you.
All right, God bless you and your family, too. It's a really good book. It's very easy to read. Blue Collar Conservatives Recommitting to an America That Works. Rick Santorum. I think you'll like it because it's very, very compelling.
Mark Levin.